most recoveries, most interceptions, and most duels on the pitch in any player if you are a
And those
stats person.
tackles.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, for me, I thought the game was won in midfield, so I would have gone with Thomas Partey as man of the match, purely because that second half, that performance where he held himself against those two Chelsea midfielders, it was absolutely beautiful to watch, and I think that's probably exactly how Arteta wanted to play him in that middle against two central midfielders whenever he's playing, but he's not able to play Party in that position for much longer because of the
Mm.
availability of the players. But I think, yeah, overall, that's probably his best performance in an Arsenal shirt. So he has to get man of the match.
I mean, I don't think it's his best performance in an Arsenal shirt, but I would put it up there for sure. I mean, I would look to
United game.
the United game. Exactly, that was exactly what I was about to say. United
And
game.
I
But
think it's because he in the pivot he's playing in, he's the one ahead as the 8 instead of the 6. With
yeah,
he's generally played better with El Neni next to him
mm.
rather than Ceballos or someone else.
There's a couple of. Oh, sorry, go on.
I was going to be controversial here because
You like him as a 6? No.
yeah, let me yeah, I'm going to be controversial because look, I'll explain my rationale behind this. You know, that second half was the kind of game that Partey would play for Atletico Madrid up against one of the big teams in Spain.
Yep.
So he was in his comfort zone basically. I know you guys are going to probably, if you've seen him, you'll understand what I'm talking about. When we his best performance last year when I saw him and watched him really closely was when Atletico Madrid played Liverpool. Do you remember when they knocked him out of the Champions League? And both games were excellent. And what he did was he covered spaces in front of the defence, waited, anticipated, did his ball recoveries, played everything simple. I think what we've done with him this year, and I think this is where I go back to, listen, George will know this, Karen will know this, CK will know this, Z will know this. I'm a massive Arsene Wenger fan. And he used to do clever things when he used to settle players into a squad. I think what he used to do is when he used to bring a player in, he wouldn't want them to go beyond what their potential is straight away, but to be comfortable within the team at what they're good at and they're already doing in their previous team. And then slowly, when they have to trust the players around them and they understand the system and what the coach is trying to do, slowly evolve the player. I think what we've done this year with him is we've put too much expectation on him to make those forward passes, get the ball into the final third, purely because we were starved of that kind of play from any other midfielder to start off with. And he's made mistakes or he's been sloppy and hasn't played his game in this simple way. Because I think Partey, when he plays the game simple and doesn't try to force things, he's outstanding as a player, right? He really is. And I think the onus, when he played with Granit in a double pivot, Granit has the ability to get that ball into the final third in a more effective way without less risky passes. But he wasn't doing that until Thomas came and played with him next to him. I started seeing something really negative with Granit. He started playing sideways passes when he wasn't doing that under Arsene I think it started under Unai Emery. I'll be frank with you, and people are going to hate me for saying that, those who are Emery fans. I hope they are listening because that's the truth. Go and analyse his game. And you'll see that he was passing the ball sideways because Emery didn't want to build up through the centre. He wanted to build up through the flanks, right? I think now that when we build up through the flanks with Granit, he does it from the side. But what Arteta wants is he wants players like Man City do to be able to be comfortable and brave to build up in the centre, through the centre of the pitch.
But just to touch on the Partey debate, because I know this is probably the one time me and Nam also disagree on it, because I think where you see Partey is key to how you want to make this team work. And I think that's a really important point. So I don't want it to get across where he can't play 6 because he can. So we have two big sample sizes when Rodri was there and when Rodri was not there. And both times I would argue he's had world-class seasons. And sometimes maybe it goes into what you subjectively like as a player, whether you're more of a lone or a double pivot. But for me, why I see Partey as an 8 is where he actually destroyed us in the Europa League. That's where I felt he was at his peak and his best, where I liken him to a Thiago. And he's somebody that, you need to give freedom to kind of be the chaos merchant and dictate the play as he sees fit. I don't want to restrict him to a sitting role. And I actually think even in this season on a whole, rather You've seen him as a lone pivot probably best in West Ham, but I'd argue his best performances more consistently have been as an 8 when he's had actually, ironically, El Neni as a partner. We've actually seen him probably flourish the most. We have more sample with that. I actually think Partey will develop into a 6 as he loses his pace a little bit more as a player, but while we have him in his prime, I think the best option is to see him as an 8. And to be honest with you, we'll probably get into, maybe a little bit of targets a little bit later, but the idea that we're targeting a Basuma, a Burge, these players who are capable sitting, I do see if we were to say get a Basuma in terms of the profiles, we would see him sit and we would see Partey go forward. But ultimately, he's got qualities to do both. You're never going to be wrong for either having him sit or as an 8. It just more is about kind of your midfield makeup. And
one last thing I'd like to add on the Partey thing is that I'm somewhere in the middle of the both of you, because I can see him as a 6 and I can see him as an 8. But my thing with Partey is he has elite half-turn ability. His initial burst of pace that he has over about 5 or 10 yards is very, very good. He's someone that is very, very powerful. So the one thing that worries me with Partey is his fitness. I mean, he needs to get it back. He needs to get it back to where he's someone that we can rely on. He needs the preseason, exactly. That's what I was about to say. And one more thing I would say is I don't see him as someone that can just stay and sit back, because his ability to run through the lines, we're wasting his best attributes. He has a great ability to get the ball in the position of a 6, or even a bit higher up, and run through to the opposition half. So if you're just letting him sit as a 6 and stay back and just marshal,
George, you'll be surprised. Actually, I'm not very far from what you guys are saying. What I was saying isn't that he should be a 6 long term. That's not what I was saying. I'm saying that while he's settling into our team and trying to understand how Arteta wants to play, which is much the demand on the midfield, the demand that Arteta wants to place on midfielder is probably more demanding than any other position in that pitch.
Yes,
because they have to be the brains and the heart of that team and know positionally where to be and what to do. And it's not easy coming from Atletico Madrid, where I think his role is simplified. George, going back to that time when I saw that game, and I saw that's where he. I knew of him, and I saw a couple of games before that semi-final that we played. But do you remember the reason why he stood out so much and he won my respect was because Madrid went down to 10 men, and he became the extra man. And I don't think it was an instruction from Simeone; it was his pure heart. He played with pure heart that day, right? Because I think he shifted him at one point to right back, didn't he? I think in that game,
he played.
And he made runs from there, right? He was a colossus in that game, and I was taken aback by how he responded as a player, because I don't think the other players around him initially knew what to do, even if they were going back into a defensive formation. Nobody knew to take the game to us and catch us out a little bit like he did. Yeah. Now, he's got tremendous heart, and I think the problem with him this year, and this is what I'm trying to say, is that we need to slowly allow him to fulfill his potential for the reason that we bought him. And sometimes, in some games, we need to think about where we place him on that pitch. The problem we have with him is he's got great skill, but he doesn't have the right profile of players around him for us to get the best out of him. And so going back to what George was saying, if we were to get a Basuma, that will allow him to go further forward and do more damage with his chaos ability up there. The only thing I think Arteta's going to hold him back on is when to play the dangerous pass, because I think he doesn't need to play it when he thinks it's on all the time. Sometimes it's about catching the other team out. Sometimes, when you play that forward pass, it's on, and sometimes it's not on. So he just needs to understand when to do that. And I don't think the kind of pressure was there for him at Atletico to get that right all the time. But this pass selection criteria for Arsenal midfield, you have to get it right all the time, because it has a knock-on effect on the way the rest of the team is going to structure their build-up into that final third. I think Arteta is very specific at how he wants to build up through that mid-third.
The other thing is the profiles of the midfield that we have right now isn't balanced enough to establish the type of football that Arteta wants to put in. We do not have that the ability to implement either a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-3-3 effectively. As he said multiple times, he's about 5 or 6 players short of that, and he clearly is. And I think this revisionism into, oh, he should be top 6 this year, top 4 this year. After, when was the last time he finished top 4? It was before even Wenger was there. I mean, there's the revisionism that is around, and the short term foolishness that is actually around our fan base at this moment. I find extremely irritating and annoying, but it is what it is.
No, I mean, all I wanted to say is I think it's just very unfortunate on Thomas that he's had to come into this dysfunctional midfield. I think ideally Thomas would have been the player that, you know, is the last puzzle of the jigsaw, but he's actually coming as the first piece. So what we're seeing is, you know, we're trying to find out where Thomas fits in this team, and I think as time goes on, we're going to see how this midfield evolves, and you can see that our targets in Bissouma, we were looking at Sumari, we were looking at Camavinga, we're looking at Berg as well. So what's happening is we're trying to, you know, get in midfielders that can operate in different positions in midfield, and not just not just force Thomas to play the 6th position or the 8th. How about, you know, Thomas plays all the positions in midfield, and all the other midfielders that we're targeting, they can also operate in those positions in mid game. So I think that's how we're going to see that midfield evolve. I think we could look at the Liverpool system, how the Liverpool midfield play, and see our midfield evolve in that way, or we could see how Manchester City, how Manchester City's midfield look. I think it's just matters on who we sign in the summer, but very, very quickly we'll see Thomas actually being the most important player in our midfield, and ultimately I think Xhaka will be the one that takes the hit.
And I'm just going to do, CK, one quick thing on Thomas. I just want to do one analogy here and talk a little bit about the medical history really quickly, because I think there's been a lot of misconception, and I want to lay a little bit of facts. What Thomas has done this season is he's gone into a injury re-injury cycle, we call it, kind of in the sports rehab world. Where he's had a really quite serious thigh strain, and he was rushed back. And, you know, it wasn't a mistake on the physios. He's passed his daily stress assessments. But what happens is you're vulnerable to weakness in your glutes and in your hamstrings following these kind of strains. And so what happened is he actually strained that thigh again, and he got into this, what we call in physio, an injury re-injury cycle, where he never had time to fully recover. And so this is why when we talk about him needing a preseason to get to his full potential, just physically, he's not been at it the entire season. It's not a long-term issue, but he just needs to work through it. Just finally on the midfield, what I liken this to is a manual car. So anybody who will drive a manual car knows that you need your clutch and you need your gas. And these two things in a wheels, they need to be perfectly matched so that you don't stall and that you don't stutter. What is happening right now is the wheels aren't matched because we don't have them lined up. And this is because we simply don't have the profiles. All we need are those two wheels to line up, and you're going to see the car function a lot more properly, and we won't get any stalls.